Welcome to Silent Stories Updates, where real-life battles meet heart-touching moments of courage, justice, and redemption. Sit back, relax, and let's dive into today's powerful story, one that reminds us why standing your ground matters. More than ever, the first time I laid eyes on the old farmhouse, I knew it was the one. It wasn't fancy. The porch was a little crooked, the shutters faded from years of sun, but it had a warmth that felt like home. After years of renting in neighborhoods ruled by HOA boards, I wanted freedom. A place where I could plant what I wanted, paint what I liked, and live without constant letters about community standards. This house was right outside the Maple Ridge Estate's HOA boundary, literally a few steps past their jurisdiction. It was perfect, at least. That's what I thought. When I moved in, everything felt peaceful. The neighbors were quiet, the air smelled of pine and fresh earth, and I finally felt I could breathe. But 3 days later, that peace shattered with the arrival of Karen. Karen was the president of the Maple Ridge HOA, a woman whose entire existence seemed fueled by control. She walked up my driveway like she owned the place, heels clicking on the pavement, clipboard in hand, wearing a smile that could freeze lava. "Welcome to the neighborhood," she said, in a tone that didn't sound welcoming at all. "I assume you've already reviewed the community guidelines." I paused. "Actually, I'm not part of the HOA. My property line is outside your boundary." Her smile twitched. "That must be a mistake. This area falls under our visual perimeter, which means you're still expected to maintain community standards." I tried to be polite. "Thanks, but I'm good. Have a nice day." I turned away, thinking that was the end of it. I was wrong. The following week, I received a letter from the Maple Ridge HOA. It was printed on fancy paper with their logo embossed in gold. The letter stated that my fence color did not align with community aesthetic values and demanded immediate repainting. I laughed, tossed it aside, and went about my day. But soon another letter came, then another, each one more threatening than the last. They fined me for having unauthorized landscaping. They warned me about non-compliant exterior structures. One even claimed I owed HOA dues, despite not being a member. At first, I thought it was a misunderstanding. I called the number on the notice, and to no surprise, Karen picked up. "Jake," she said sweetly, "we've been very patient. It would be easier for everyone if you just joined officially. You'll get access to our amenities, community events, and a voice in decision-making." "I don't want to join," I said calmly. "And legally, you can't force me." There was silence, then a sharp edge to her voice. "You're making this difficult. We expect cooperation." And with that, she hung up. That's when the harassment started. One morning, I caught two men from the HOA measuring my fence line. When I confronted them, they said they were verifying compliance. Later, I found an orange sticker slapped on my mailbox that read, "Notice of violation." My security cameras caught Karen herself walking up my driveway late one evening, snapping photos of my property. Then came the final straw, a letter taped to my front door that said, "Failure to comply may result in property seizure for the protection of community value." I couldn't believe what I was reading. They were threatening to take my house. I called my lawyer the next morning, and he confirmed what I already knew. They had no legal power outside their boundary. But he advised me to document everything, just in case. So I did. Every letter, every photo, every visit. I installed more cameras and made sure every inch of my property was under watch. A week later, Karen showed up again, this time with two board members. They marched up my driveway like soldiers preparing for battle. "Jake," Karen barked, "this is your final warning. You have 48 hours to comply with our property standards, or we will seize control of this residence." I stared at her in disbelief. "You step 1 foot on this land, and I'll have you arrested for trespassing." Her face turned beet red. "We'll seize you by force if we have to," she screamed. That was it. I called the sheriff right in front of her. The deputies arrived within minutes, and when they asked for proof of ownership, I showed them my deed, clearly marked outside HOA limits. Karen tried arguing with them, waving her clipboard around, but the sheriff cut her off. "Ma'am," he said firmly, "this property is not part of your jurisdiction. If you or your board members return here again, you'll be charged with harassment and trespassing." Karen's expression was priceless, a mix of rage and humiliation. She stormed off, muttering something about maintaining standards for the first time in weeks. I felt relief, but deep down, I knew she wasn't done. A few days later, I got an email from her, this time pretending to apologize. She said the HOA only wanted to maintain harmony, and that she hoped we could move forward amicably. I ignored it. I wasn't falling for another trap, but Karen wasn't giving up. I noticed her SUV parked near my property almost every evening. Sometimes she'd just sit there, staring at my house, writing notes. It was unsettling. Then, one morning, I found my mailbox destroyed, bashed in with what looked like a bat. There was no proof it was her, but I didn't need proof to know. I replaced it with a steel one and installed more cameras. My lawyer helped me file an official harassment complaint and a cease and desist order. A few weeks later, the county reviewed the case. And the result? Maple Ridge HOA received a hefty fine for overstepping legal boundaries. They were warned that any further interference would result in lawsuits. The silence after that was golden. For the first time since moving in, I could finally enjoy my home. I fixed up the porch, repainted the fence, and even started a vegetable garden. It felt good to reclaim my peace. Then one evening, I saw Karen again, standing at the end of my driveway. But this time, she wasn't yelling or holding her clipboard. She looked tired, defeated. "I didn't mean for it to get this bad," she said softly. I worked so hard for that community. I didn't want to see it fall apart." Her voice cracked, and for a moment, I didn't see the monster who'd harassed me, just a woman terrified of losing control. "Karen," I said quietly, "you can't protect a community by controlling everyone around you. Sometimes you have to let people live their own way." She didn't say another word, just turned and walked away. After that day, I never heard from her again. The HOA replaced her within a month, and things finally calmed down. No more letters, no more threats, just peace. I started meeting some of the residents from Maple Ridge at the local cafe. A few of them actually apologized on her behalf. They said she had been running the HOA for years, obsessed with perfection, terrified that one out-of-place house would lower property values. One man told me, "She meant well once, but the power got to her." Maybe he was right. Months later, as summer rolled in, I sat on my porch watching the sunset behind the trees. The air was warm, the crickets sang, and for the first time in a long time, I felt at home, truly at home. That house became more than just a building to me. It was a symbol of freedom, a reminder that peace isn't found in control, but in the courage to stand firm when someone tries to take it away. You see, we live in a world full of Karens, people who believe their rules define others. But life isn't meant to be lived within someone else's boundaries. It's meant to be built on your own terms, with your own choices, your own mistakes, your own victories. When I look back now, I don't just remember the chaos, I remember the lessons. I learned that strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's just a quiet refusal to be bullied. Sometimes it's the simple act of saying, "This is mine," and you can't take it. A few months later, I adopted a stray dog that wandered into my yard, a scruffy little mutt I named Lucky. Maybe it was fate, but that dog fit right in. Every evening, he'd sit by my side on the porch, head resting on my knee as we watched the sun go down. Occasionally, I'd see Karen's car pass by in the distance. She never stopped, never looked my way. Maybe she finally realized that control isn't power, peace is. And as the days rolled by, that small farmhouse became a place of quiet victory. The garden flourished, the paint on the porch gleamed in the sunlight, and the sound of wind through the trees was the only reminder I needed. That freedom was worth every fight. In the end, I didn't just win against an HOA, I won my peace. So if you ever find yourself up against someone trying to take away your freedom, remember this story. You don't need to shout. You don't need to bend. You just need to stand your ground. Because no one has the right to decide how you live but you. This was Silent Stories Updates, where real stories of courage and redemption remind us that peace is always worth protecting. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more. Thank you for watching, and remember, Never let anyone take away the home you've worked for. Not even a Karen with a clipboard.